Hello and welcome to our live coverage of the start of the 2016 Vendée Globe. 29 sailors are just waiting to get started. They're about to set off on a race around the world, solo, single-handed and unaided. You just saw a glimpse of it in the commentary box with me. Dika Fari's here. You raced this Vendée Globe race in 2008. Just how tough is this waiting period? They've been out on the water for an hour and 20 minutes and they've got about another half an hour to go.
Well, for the last few boats out of the 29 that left Le Sable d'Olonne, it hasn't been too long. There's quite a lot to do, but obviously for the first boat off the dock, Didac Costa, we saw the Spaniard skipper. He's had quite a bit of time out there, and it's important that they've eaten, that they've drunk, they've had a little bit of rest to get over the emotional charge of that channel that they get from all the spectators. And now they've been looking at the weather. They've got the final weather download. They've checked that the wind's doing exactly what they thought it was going to do. They've decided on the sail plan with their team. And it's a balance now between going all out at the start with this 10 to 15 knots that's in the bay, knowing that as they head out of the Bay of Biscay, they're going to see an increase in wind up to 20, 25 knots. Tomorrow morning at Finisterre, the corner there, being around 30 to 35 knots in the acceleration zone. It's a straight line course, there's no big maneuvers, but if they start with the big sails, they're going to have to change down the sails as they go in a straight line. So it is going to be physically demanding. They're going to have some jibes ahead, so they're going to need to prepare for that. But it's, you know, as we know, it's a long way around the world. The race is not won in these first couple of hours, but a lot can be said just before they head out to 24,000 miles around the world.
Over 100 spectator boats out on the water in the Bay of Le Sable d'Olonne, preparing to watch the boats set off on a race around the world. And this is the route.
Heading south out the Bay of Biscay along the Portuguese coast to the equator, down through the doldrums into the South Atlantic, around that South Atlantic high pressure into the Southern Ocean, where they follow under the Cape of Good Hope across the Indian Ocean, staying north of that ice perimeter that's set under Australia and New Zealand, into the Pacific. Then they reach the final destination of the Southern Ocean, Cape Horn. They head north, then up the Atlantic, round that Sant'Elena high, cross the equator and the doldrums, back into the Northern Hemisphere, and that final North Atlantic sprint home to a welcome at Le Sable d'Olonne.
Let's break that up into chunk-sized bits. So first of all, down the Atlantic, what are the challenges there over the next week or so?
So with the forecast that they've got, they're going to look for a really fast trip to the equator. The current record is held by Jean Le Cam, sailing here in Finisterre Mer Vent, and it's his fourth entry into the race. He got to the equator in 10 days, 11 hours. The current routing for the fast foiling boats are looking at 6 to 7 days. So we're going to see our first record in that first section. And you're looking at a route to the doldrums, the Pot Noir, that crossing of the equator. They've got to time it in between clouds and that no wind area. So they're going to have a fast downwind to Finisterre, go down the Portuguese coast jibing, get the trade winds, and it's pretty much one-sided, you know, straight line, no big maneuvers, just a few jibes to stay in the pressure. Line yourself up for the equator, go south until you meet the new pressure system in the southern hemisphere. They'll be on the wind to start with. They're going to end up reaching down that Brazilian coastline, which looks like they're going the wrong way. But what's stopping them going in a straight line is a big high pressure of no wind. So they have to go round the outside of that down to the south. And those that generally go further west and south, like Michel Desjoyaux 8 years ago when he overtook everybody to go on to win, they benefit. They get into that Southern Ocean, the 40s and the 50s, under Cape Horn and into that Southern Ocean drag race then around the world. We're on board there with PRB, very noticeable by its orange colour. Shore team there controlling the boat, so Vincel's looking at weather, doing final checks, I'm sure. All the boats we've seen have got a full main hoisted so far, so they're all, you know, happy with this 10 to 15 knots. They'll probably put some reefs in as they head towards Finisterre, probably tomorrow morning.
And as we see the view from Vincent Rieu's boat, you're taking us down to the Southern Ocean. They leave at this time of year so that they hit the Southern Ocean in the summer. but that doesn't make it any easier, really.
No, so the risk in the south is the ice, and the further south you go, the shorter the route, the quicker it is, but the higher the chance of collision with ice. And Seb Joss on Edmund de Rothschild this year knows only too well, having hit a growler at a time in the ice and damaged the bow of his boat. So there's a perimeter around Antarctica that can move north and south depending on where the ice limits are, and they've got satellite there to show them where the risk is. So it's set at the moment, but it can move so long as the information's given with enough time ahead of the first leading boat. The boats generally will be running along this perimeter line, and it actually goes a little further north as you're south of Australia. Because what the Australian Maritime Rescue Service have said, if you want us to come and help, the extension of our range is 1,500 miles. So there's a corridor along Australia where the boats will be within this distance from Australia, and then they get a bit more scope in the Pacific before they dip down and round that notorious Cape Horn.
Now, for the first time this year, we have foiling boats. There are 7 of them in the fleet. We don't know how they're going to perform. Nobody does. But presuming there are no disasters, can we safely say that the first foiling boats to reach Cape Horn will be the winners?
I think on the current forecast, we could say that if the foiling boats stay in one piece, they're going to be gone like in the first few days here. They're going to reach that equator and there'll be a big gap between them and the rest of the fleet, which is what everyone's a little bit worried about. If the boats do reach Cape Horn, then they will ultimately finish this race at the front, yes.
So just 3 hours, 17 minutes separated first and second in the last edition of the race. Francois Gabin and Armel Leclerc. That is unlikely to happen between old boats or non-foiling boats and the foiling boats. If that record is broken and it's even closer, it's going to be between 2 foiling boats, you think?
Definitely. I mean, we're talking at a minimum a 5 to 10% speed increase with the foils, and I've heard numbers as high as 20% speed increase. We're talking an extra 4 knots on boats that are reaching or off the wind. Don't panic with the images you're seeing. That isn't somebody who's fallen in. That's somebody that's taken that spot of being out on the boat, part of it, and then having that experience of jumping off the boat and then being rescued by the team. That's why he's in a survival suit. It was organised.
Thought you were going to say it's a spectator trying to get the best position, best viewing position.
Maybe he's seen that film we talked about where the stowaway was on board.
Yeah, the crowds have really come out in huge numbers, as they always do for the start of the Vendée Globe at Les Sables d'Olonne. We have 29 boats out on the water, just preparing themselves. We're about to see another guest go over the back of the boat and be collected by the ribs. And then in a few minutes' time, they're going to start getting into their start sequence. And the actual start, the gun, will be at 2 minutes past 1 local time. So that's in about 20 minutes or so's time. So these guys will be either part of the team, the last bit of kit that isn't needed on board has just floated off the back of the boat. And what have the team been doing on board for the last, couple of hours? Because surely they've had weeks of preparation and everything will be ready.
Well, the boat in essence is ready, so the skipper's probably changed the clothing because now they're ready for offshores. They probably put all the layers on. They did the polite corporate goodbye on the way out the channel, and now they've got the sailing kit on. They would have downloaded the latest weather. The sails would have been hoisted. They would have made a decision on the sail plan depending on the wind that they've found in the bay. They will have marked the position of each end of the start line so that the skipper's got it on their computer software so they know exactly where they're going. They would have run the latest routing, sent a little bit of media off, and done the personal goodbye between the skipper and his team, because that connection is so strong. The skipper completely relies on the reliability of his boat, and that is completely set up by his shore team that have worked hours, blood, sweat and tears in the build-up to this day. And this is him going, right, they're saying everything's good, you're good to go, and he's going, okay, now it's my turn to deliver.
Sports fans watching this are always amazed by how little financially is at stake as far as the prize money is concerned. There's a lot at stake, obviously, with multi-million-pound boats, but the actual winner is only going to walk away with 160,000 euros. Second place gets 100,000, and third gets 75,000. And there's a little bit of money for everyone in the top 10, but you're looking at a total prize fund of 600,000. So they're certainly not doing it for the money.
No, and to be honest, when I even entered the Vendée Globe, I didn't even know there was money involved, because it just doesn't really enter into sailing races. You're literally there for the passion and for the glory of it, and it's quite a self-regulating sport. You promise, you sign declarations that you haven't cheated or taken on board assistance, and you know, it's a very trusting sport, but you know, you're very quickly found out, and it's you battling the elements. You've got enough to worry about without anything else. But you're right, with the investment that's made to the equipment and the teams and the time and preparation, the prize pot isn't that big, but it's definitely not about the money. It's about the passion we have for the sport, for being out there with nature, harnessing its power and delivering, and the glory. And once you've entered the Vendée Globe, you're part of a very elite special family. There's been 71 skippers to complete the race, cross the finish line, and of that, only 51 that have actually done it. There's obviously people that have done it several times, more than once. So that's a very small number of people that have sailed single-handed, non-stop, solo around the world without assistance.
We were looking at Jan Elias's boat, Kegine, earlier on, and Nandor Far of Hungary sailed through our shop just then. We're talking about the Vendée Globe family. What really stands out to you know, someone who comes from the outside is just what a family it is, in as much as you come to the start of the Vendée Globe and you see all manner of ex-skippers here, meeting current skippers, passing on advice, and also a lot of the guys out there on the water starting this race this year have been through the ranks of working with other skippers and on their campaigns in other Vendée Globe editions.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's even for myself, I'd been involved in 2 editions of the race before I actually came as a sailor to race. And here I am, I was back at the last edition and back at this edition, because I actually wouldn't be anywhere else every 4 years. You know, people welcome the fact that you've come back. They're really excited to see you. You're part of the emotion of the day. You know exactly how they feel and what they're going through. And it's just so nice to come and see it. The camaraderie between the skippers is really unusual, and they know that when it comes down to it, that's their first port of call. Their first port of rescue is going to be a fellow competitor, even though you're really wanting to go out there. And it doesn't matter if you've done it before, it still, you know, wrenches at your heartstrings. And it's just so lovely to see. And a story in every one of these images, from the first Irishman taking part to the first Japanese sailor taking part, to Rich Wilson, the American sailor, the oldest ever in the race, and this guy, the youngest sailor, Alain Rura of Switzerland at 23, was absolutely lapping up the atmosphere. And we also saw a very emotional Morgan Lagravière on Safran 2. This is him. And hopefully he's composed himself now and recovered a little from the kind of energy-sapping emotion that we saw earlier on. Well, let's hope so, because I think all of us were a little stunned at just how emotional he was. We expect emotion, but that was clearly someone that hasn't been working for a team and seen just the impact that this start day has. And I think it was just overwhelming for him. But I think now the team's probably got his head back in the game. They've set his boat up for him. They're going to get ready to be leaving the boat, and then it's up to him to deliver. So now it's what he's been training for, it's what he's set up for, and those emotions he can kind of reminisce over once he's, you know, sailing in the sunshine in a pair of shorts in a few days' time.
Now, you might think those people, if you're not here and you're not aware of the weather in Western France at this time of year, you might think those spectator boats are also enjoying the hot sunshine, but it is very cold out on the water. There's a cold breeze as we're on board the big Mammut boat. And I wonder how that will do for Fabrice Amadeo on his first attempt at the Vendée Globe.
What's really nice there is from the image, you can see the discipline of the spectator boats, not wanting to impinge on the space that is provided for these 29 skippers on their IMOCA 60s to be sailing around. maneuvering their boat into space to cross that start line. It's not a start line where people are going to be pushing the limits. Everybody wants to be starting on time, but they've got 24,000 miles to go, 44,000 kilometers, and it's about having a good start and not having to come back for that line again.
We talked and saw images of Alain Roura, the youngest man in the race ever, at 23. He's on La Fabrique. And we have the oldest competitor ever in this race as well, Rich Wilson of the USA at 66. So a huge range of ages in the fleet. How different will the experiences be according to age? So does age help because of experience? Does youth help because you're fitter? How does it work?
I think there's a balance between the two. So in Alain's case and Rich's case, Rich is going to be conservative because he's 66 years old. He knows he has to last long enough to get the boat all the way round and across the finish line. Whereas Alain is, again, wanting to complete a dream and not wanting to make mistakes that are costly. So there's an element of conservatism on both sides. The fitness and youth will generally help sailors out, because as you get older it's harder to bounce back from knocks and bruises and confidence knocks as well. You know, if an incident happens with a sail, you're probably not going to rush to put it back up, whereas youth and ignorance sometimes is bliss, and you can just go for it then. The other thing as well is with a little bit of experience, you can balance that pushing and throttling back, and that's, I think the classic is with Alex Thompson on Hugo Boss. Was known for being an all-or-nothing sailor. Now he is known for being a fast sailor, and he's got a fast boat, and it's whether the two can stay the course. So I think it'll be things beyond his control that will be his limiting factor if that's the case. And I think that experience, the youth, the age, you know, it all kind of combines, and it's just so many elements that can affect you, which is why this race is the unknown. You know, we don't know which ones of these skippers are going to cross the finish line and who's going to have what tales to tell along the way.
We're on board with Sebastian Josse, one of the big names of the Vendée Globe and indeed round the world sailing. Just about to embark on his third Vendée Globe. He didn't finish the last one he attempted 2 editions ago. But obviously he feels more prepared, more ready for this one. But it doesn't matter how much you prepare, you just never know what you're going to experience. And there is a few of the skippers out there, for example Louis Burton on Bureau Valet, the big yellow boat that we were seeing a few minutes ago, who crashed into a trawler off Portugal just a few days into the last race and had to retire. So you never quite know what's around the corner. Vincent Riou on his bright orange PRB boat, one of 5 men aiming for his 4th Vendée Globe race. Again, his crew and team around him making those last preparations.
Maitre Coq there is Jeremy Bayou as the skipper. That's one of the old generation boats that's retrofitted some foils. Different foils to the others. They're slightly smaller with a vertical downward foil section as well, so they have a slightly different effect to the others that have all pretty much followed the same route, except Alex Thompson on Hugo Boss that have got he's got more of a horizontal trajectory with his boards, so the polars and the effect on his boat will be slightly different. The theory is his boat will be foiling slightly earlier than the others, so we shall see if that happens.
We're seeing foiling boats, monohulls, for the very first time in this race. Tell us a little bit more about how they work.
So conventional boats like we're seeing here on Initiative Kerr have dagger boards. So as the boat is heeled over, the keel is swung, so they've got canting keels, swung to weather to help keep the righting moment of the boat. So the dagger board is put down to stop that sideways slip. And what the foiling boats have done is they've expanded on that, because the rule for the IMOCA 60 restricted the mast development and the keel development. They're now one design. You can do a one design fixed mast or a one design rotating mast, and it's a one design keel. So development and technology has moved to the foils. And they've changed the dagger boards from being vertical just to stop sideways movement into foils that go out to the side to help create lift.
Which we can see sticking out of the side of Metrocoque. Jeremy
That's right,
Bailey's
and it
boat.
actually increases the righting moment. And the foils have rake and sweep. So rake is the angle of attack. So if you think of how they're hitting the water, and the sweep is the fore and aft motion. So all the boats have been working on this development to get the optimum, and it's that balance between drag and lift. And the lift helps lift the boat up so it sails above the water, reducing resistance, making it faster. And also, because it's got stabilization, the foil itself creates lift, so it actually helps the righting moment, which allows them to sail with more sail area. So that's why they're powerful. They're fast and powerful. And as a result, they're finding that some of the guys with the canting keels are actually dropping the keel when the boat's foiling, because there's so much lift being generated by the foil itself, they don't need the keel to be working half as hard.
And there is our start line, just to point out, from the committee boat over to a buoy at the far end. Quite a long start line, so there won't be too much trouble getting across that for the whole fleet.
Now the difference with these boats, I know Hugo Boss, you can see his foil out to the side there, is that getting that optimum. What is going to be, they're running routing programs around the world of the angle of the wind that they're most likely to see, what kind of wind strength they're most likely to see, and they have to prefix this rake and sweep decision for the optimum. So they've gone for the best average, and it's whether they've made it right.
There you have foiling in a nutshell. Thanks, Dee.
It's really new technology, and we're seeing it with the America's Cup. We're seeing it with stadium racing, but this is like the first time it's gone offshore. That's why everyone is so excited. And there's 6 brand new foiling boats and Metrocoque's #7 with the retrofit foils that we're really going to see how they're going to change.
So 2 minutes to the first signal of the starting sequence. We've got 2 signals, one coming up in a couple of minutes, then one 4 minutes later, and then we will have the departure 4 minutes after that. So at 2 minutes past the hour, wherever you're watching this, at 2 minutes past the hour, those boats, those 29 boats, will cross that red start line off Sable d'Olonne. In the shot, the brand new Hugo Boss boat, sailed by the British sailor, the only British sailor in the race this year, Alex Thompson. His 4th attempt at the Vendée Globe. He managed 3rd in the last edition. He'll have said goodbye to his family.
And I know that he's got a huge amount of support here in Le Sable d'Olonne in France, but he's also got a massive support network back at home in Gosport in the Seahorse pub, supporting him currently, listening to this feed. So let's have a big cheer for the British skipper Alex Thompson from you guys.
We're on board with Vincent Rioux. You can see him there in the orange.
His team just giving him the last good luck. If you wonder what that device is around his neck, that's for his autopilot, so that he can control, the boat can drive with the autopilot and he can still control it no matter where he is on the boat.
And Sebastian Josse also preparing for that first signal, which is about 30 seconds away now.
And that's his team. They're doing the hard work, so the skipper literally doesn't do anything until they have to. So they're really trying to save their energy. This first signal will be the 8-minute start gun, and then it'll be 8, 4, 1, go.
Now this isn't...
4, 3, 2, 1, signal. So we're in the 8-minute countdown now. The crews can still be on board the boats until the 4-minute gun. And if they're caught on board the boat after that time, then the boat will have a penalty that they will have to follow.
If this were a different sort of regatta, thank you to Conrad Coleman, 100% natural energy, his team, from his Angels. He's doing a lot of work for the environment. The New Zealand sailor on his first Vendée Globe. His aim to get experience and return next time with a project that he believes can challenge for victory. But in the meantime, doing a lot of good for the environment with some sort of weird engine.
Definitely, right. He's the only boat with an electric engine, and he had to work quite hard to get this passed, because all the engines are sealed, but he needs to be able to open his propeller to allow it to act as a hydro generator to generate power. So he has an electronic data logging process on that they can check if it's in propulsion or what status it's in, so they can check he's not cheating.
We're on board the committee boat with Prince Albert of Monaco, who will start the race. That's him in the baseball cap. The French have borrowed some royalty to start the race this year. And
interesting for Conrad, though, if we go back to his engine,
yeah,
he's not going to have any heat generated, so he's going to be super cold in the Southern Ocean. So he's enjoying this sunshine while he's got it.
I wonder if he's got any equipment to mitigate that.
So, well, his whole power solution is solar panels on the coach roof and mainsail, hydro generator, and 9 batteries with an electric engine. So I think he's just got some really good thermals. Maybe a woolly hat.
Now, if you're used to watching other regattas or match racing and the countdown to the start all gets a bit frantic and there's a wild frenzy of activity, it's not quite the same on a race that lasts 3 months and 40,000 kilometres.
It feels like it is. That last little build-up, your team basically try and set you up so that you're ready to go, so you don't have any more manoeuvres to do before you cross the line, before they jump off. They try and do as much for you as they can before they have to leave the boat at that 4-minute gun. And then it's up to you. And it's a case of, okay, then it's like a timed run to that start line. So you accelerate and decelerate to make sure you try and cross that line at 2 minutes past the hour, which is when the gun goes. Spectators having a great time. Being outside, it's cold. The northwesterly breeze that these guys have got, great for a start, really cold for spectators. But the fact that it's not raining and it's bright sunshine out there means that everyone is loving it, getting some great pictures as we're seeing here on the screen.
There's a smattering of rain throughout the day yesterday, although it was sunny as well. Different different showers, and they predicted showers for this lunchtime, but it hasn't happened. The conditions for spectators certainly are absolutely fabulous. And they've been here since about 4 in the morning, wanting to get the best spot to be able to follow the start of the race and wave off their heroes. And it's no exaggeration to say that they are heroes as well. I was down on the pontoons looking at the boats yesterday, 30 seconds to the next signal. And yes, I was watching these thousands of people coming down and just looking close up at the boats. And they were all ages. And there were young kids, you know, standing next to a cardboard cutout of Jean-Pierre Dick having their photo taken so they could tweet it. And there were their parents and grandparents also enjoying the atmosphere.
3, 2, 1, top.
So that's the 4-minute gun.
C'était l'envoi des filles un peu bas.
And that means that every single 20 of the 29 skippers out there are alone on their boat. And you can see the graphic of the line is from the orange buoy to the grey military-looking ship at the other end of the line. And all these skippers are on their own. There's 5 skippers that are doing this for their 4th time, but there's 14 skippers doing this for their very first time.
A real wide range of age and experience and type of boat, and only 100 people have ever sailed solo non-stop unaided around the world. Compare that to 3,000 climbing Everest. So when they describe this as the Everest of the seas, that's cutting it short, really.
Yeah, it really is a good description, and it's interesting. Only one person in this fleet before has won this race. Only one person in this fleet before has sailed under 80 days around the world. And there's talk now that if the foilers can stay in one piece, they're looking to beat the record by some substantial amount. So it's fascinating for development and technology and going forwards. Race organisers have got big smiles on their face there for the region.
And the figures for failed attempts are extraordinary. Since the first race in 1989, only 71 of the 138 boats taken part have actually finished the race. So it's not just the effort of putting a team together and getting it to the start line. You've then obviously got to do the hard work at the business end and get it round, get that boat round the oceans of the world.
So we're just coming up to 2 minutes to the start, and we can see everyone's following the same, just trying to keep the boat moving. It's quite light in the bay, but they know as they're going to head out the bay, that wind's going to increase quite rapidly. A little bear away from Matricock, and you can see the acceleration there. Some people haven't deployed a head sail yet because they just don't want to overshoot that line before 1 minute 45 to go. It's really about time and distance.
And TV channels, news channels, certainly across France and around the world, have just joined this coverage live, which is why the race is timed to start at 2 minutes past the hour to get maximum coverage for the race. To get it on as many screens as possible for the sailing fans, and of course for the people, the sponsors, the people who put the money into the race, to get them as much coverage as possible. Our TV helicopter is up above the fleet, and we're 1 minute and 5 seconds to the start.
So that's 1 minute to go. This is all about time and distance to the line now. This is not a make or break to who wins the race, who wins the line here. This is a delivery for a sponsor. This is payback to your race crew for preparation and showing your intent to your fellow competitors. So you'll see that pack in the middle, and you'll see some people hanging back. You can see No Way Back there is trying to kill a little bit of time, and you can see Edmund de Rothschild just travelling along the line, and then when he thinks the time is right here, come up, sheet on and accelerate.
So with 20 seconds to go to the start, it's all about just staying out of trouble, staying focused on the race that is about to begin. The fans have spotted themselves on the big screen. 350,000 have come to watch the start of this race.
And the first boat across the line there was MACSF, Bertrand de Broc. If he got clear ahead, the line was clear, then he's had a fantastic start. And behind him is Keguenet and then Quito Pavon on Bastide Otier.
So the 2016 Vendée Globe is underway. Prince Albert on the committee boat has waved them away. The Odyssey has begun. For some of these guys, the dream is all about winning. For others, their dream is, well, simply to be able to say, I did it. But whatever their aims, ahead of them lie 40,000 kilometres of adventures and a good 3 months of non-stop hard work. And off they go in the Vendée sunshine, heading south down the Atlantic.
Now the team ribs are allowed to follow their team boat for about 3 miles, and then that's the limit, and the skippers are then finally allowed to go. I just saw MASF with Bertrand de Broc having to go back, so he was over the line when the gun went. That means that he now has to go back and recross the line and start again. Extra manoeuvres that he does not need.
So it's an incredible waste of energy, isn't it, at this stage?
Hugely, and so that means that Quito Pavon on Bastide Otier got the best start, and we can see the front of the pack there.
Vincent Rioux on the orange PRB boat in 3rd place.
And as we'd expect, the foiling boats, PRB, Saint-Michel, Verbac, SMA, they're all going to start accelerating at a faster rate of knots than the other boats. The other boats will have their speed, and that will be it. And the foilers now are just driving past them all. And as that wind increases, they're then going to end up on their foils and accelerating. That's going to be one happy skipper there. Controlling his autopilot with the device on his chest, so he can keep looking out and trimming. Great start from Tanguy de la Motte. Let's remind everyone to go to Facebook and press like. Get those euros donated to save those children with life-threatening heart conditions.
Initiative Cœur, the charity that he's supporting and that is emblazoned all over his sails.
So those boats with the foils, you can see PRB, Michel, Verbac, Banque Populaire, SMA. You can see them slowly moving through the fleet. Edmund de Rothschild there has got a nice bit of pace on there.
the huge Kiwi symbol that's on Thomas Rouillan's boats, Le Souffle du Nord. Again, another charity project, 150 organisations sponsoring him, 850 supporters. And none of them have their names on that sail, just the hummingbird logo of the Imagine charity that he's supporting.
Now his background, don't forget, is not for my Mocha 60s. He's dominated the Class 40 class. This is him stepping up to the big boys. And he seems to be enjoying having control of a big boat.
And it's second time lucky for him because he failed to get a team together.
Ici le Prince Albert. J'étais très heureux de donner le départ de cette Vendée Globe 2016. Je souhaite à tous les skippers un bon vent, une belle course, une belle expérience sur ce merveilleux événement. Et j'espère vous revoir tous à l'arrivée. Bon vent à tous, merci beaucoup. Thank you very much.
So a message to all the skippers from Prince Albert of Monaco. He started the race, he's wished everybody well, and fair winds.
On board with Seb Joss there on Edmund de Rothschild. He's so relaxed, he's not even looking where he's going.
Which is quite dangerous when you see the wide shot of the fleet and the number of support boats that are out there, the chop, and the spectator boats as well. It is a really wonderful spectacle.
It's good. That's from outside his boat that you just saw, and he's got his lured foil out. He's now trimming on. You use a pedestal and the winch is turned by your manoeuvring with the handles. And they said that PRB was a threat and the fastest all-rounder boat. And he's stretching his legs out there on the fleet. But I think as we head into the stronger breeze offshore, we'll see the foilers come into their own and have the acceleration that they want.
Now let's talk about sails. What have they got on board?
So you can have a maximum of 7 sails. It used to be 10 sails. And you can choose. So there's, you have to think about the wind conditions you're going to see, the angles you're going to sail at, and pick the right sails for those conditions. The foiling boats now, because their wind, apparent wind, the wind the boat feels is so far forwards because of the acceleration, they have a lot flatter sails now and only have maybe a spinnaker for those light downwind conditions until they get foiling. So they've actually missed some of their sails in their wardrobe because they don't need them now. So they have a code 0 for those very light conditions. And then they've missed out the Genoa that they used to have straight into what we call a J2, a Solent, because they're accelerating so fast on their foils. Some people don't want to deal with the flapping extra material of a spinnaker. So your Rich Wilson, your Peter Harima, so Great American 4 and No Way Back have chosen not to have a spinnaker, an A2. And that's just because they just don't want to be dealing with that much sail area and aren't happy with it. So it's everybody's got slightly different decisions and have made different calls. And it's about making sure you've got the wardrobe that fits the sail angles and can last the test of time.
And what they've got up at the moment is slightly bigger than a tennis court in area. And to give you some idea of the height, because although there's 350,000 people here, not everyone has been able to come to Les Sables d'Olonne, although it feels like the whole world is here. Not everyone's been able to see these boats personally. The mast is 29 meters high, which is, well, if you've got 2 rugby posts and put them end to end, that gives you an idea of just how high they are, or 6.5 London buses.
So there's Bertrand de Brock now playing catch-up because he's had to go back and recross the line. And I'm just trying to work out who we have here. That's Ender heading back in.
Irish boat.
So Ender on Kilcullen Voyager is heading back, not out in the direction of the race course. So maybe he's got something he needs to work on, or maybe he forgot his cigar.
He was partying away on the pontoon and all the way on the up the canal as he headed away from Le Sable d'Olonne. That party has ended. Let's hope his race hasn't. And
on board with Thomas Ruon here, you can see he's already taken his jacket off. That's how hard he's working. They're off the breeze, so it's a little bit warmer now that northerly's helping push them along. But because of the speed of these boats, the apparent wind, the wind that the boat feels goes forward, so it still feels as if you're going upwind. Alex Thompson is just praying that that extra pressure comes in so he can just show everybody what his boat's made of.
We'd all love to see it.
It does look a beast. Meticulous preparation from his team. The experience has shown, and he's definitely, talking to him a few days ago on the dock, he's in a really good place. So I think we can, it will be something beyond his control that will stop his race. And as we know, he's the threat to the French.
And here is one of those French boats.
Jan Elias, a favourite non-foiler. So himself and PRB are favourites without foils. And he just knows that it's a war of attrition and you just got to stay in it and keep going. And even if the foilers disappear over the horizon, he won't lose heart with that.
Back on board Mahmoud, another French boat. All these French skippers hoping to keep the Vendée Globe trophy in France. It's never left the country. The number of foreign skippers or international skippers taking part has increased year on year, but they've never managed to wrestle that trophy away from the French.
So you can see a really good close-up of Hugo Boss's foil there working. With his being more horizontal, the shaft from the hull actually acts as a lift, with that end tip acting as a stabilizer. So it's interesting. His foil development has been very different to all the French boats, and he's hoping that will give him the edge.
Now mentally, I guess these guys have sort of sat down and gone, oh, right, I'm here to do the business. Now this is what I've come for, and you know, back in the groove and focused on what they're doing. We can see them working hard, but mentally they'll have slipped into that race mode now.
Yeah, I think from the moment your shore crew jump off the boat, you're in race mode and your mind knows what you have to do. And this bit now, when everybody's still around, you still have spectators, you're still in a little bit of a buzz. And because all the boats are around, you're trimming and you're busy. And I think it's only when this evening when you start to lose sight of the spectators and it's just the other boats, and then you head into dusk and then the nav lights come on and then you start to lose where people are, then it's like, okay, this is a long way around the world. I've got to go for a long time. This is about me and my boat now. And I think it's not until tomorrow morning when they wake up that, you know, that it's like a realization hits. But it's it'll be interesting because tomorrow morning they'll be off Finisterre driving in a lot of pressure. So they're going to have a tough first couple of days. And those guys that have come from Le Solitaire de Figaro, where they're used to battling boat on boat for 3-4 days at a time, will probably be more comfortable with this bit. It takes everybody about a week to 10 days to find a rhythm of sleeping and eating and managing themselves. So, you know, this first bit is all a bit adrenaline fueled, and you have to really be disciplined with yourself to eat and rest when you can, so that you're ready for the next maneuver. And don't forget, driving these boats isn't just about changing the sails from one side to the other. You've got to move all the sails down below or on deck. You've got to move all your food, all your stack, all your stores. It's a long old process.
Morgan Le Gravier on Safran 2. Banque Populaire with another Frenchman, Amel Leclerc, closest to us. And Jan Elier, the other side, who had a terrible Vendée Globe. The last time he competed in 2008, he broke his femur, needed rescuing by the Australian Navy. But 8 years on, he's back and attempting his second race around the world.
I think it's really interesting here where you've got these wind conditions that probably aren't over 12 knots consistently, and therefore the foilers aren't leaving the others behind. If anything, PRB is showing them the way.
When there's less wind or no wind, Are you better off on a foiling boat or an old-fashioned boat?
The argument is that the foilers will struggle in the light winds. They're a little bit heavier, a little more drag, and it's the older generation boats that are a bit more, easier to get through that sticky situation.
The former winner of the 2004 Vendée Globe, Vincent Riou, leading the fleet away from Les Sables d'Olonne. 3 races to his name already, 2 podium places. Didn't have such a good time of things in the last edition, but he's looking good in a non-foiling boat, one of the favourites.
Definitely one of the favourites and the only previous winner in this edition. And so he'll be very pleased with delivering a great start. Local support for the local sponsor.
And how important is it to be in good condition and on a winning streak? Because he's won pretty much everything he's done in the last 12 months. Or does that all go out of the window when you go off around the world?
I think it has a big impact on your confidence, and so therefore it puts you in a good place. But ultimately, there's no rules on the Vendée Globe. That's all left on the dock. And the form guide, as we know, is great to talk about for us, and the banter, sure. But it's not going to be the race favourites necessarily that are going to cross the finish line and be the race winners. The Vendée Globe has a very clever way of just jumbling it all up, throwing it all up in the air and delivering completely different results. I must say this is one of the best weather conditions we've had for the Vendée Globe. Great conditions. There's a swell running. It is the Bay of Biscay. You've got the whole Atlantic coming at you, but clear skies, bright, sunny conditions, cumulus cloud there where we have had showers. You may see that line of cloud offshore that they're heading towards. That will probably be a signal for where the wind will start to increase as they head out of the bay. The hazards the boats have got tonight, they're going to go through fishing pots, and then they move into the fishing fleet, and then as they head further out, they're going to move into the traffic lane, where there's a traffic separation scheme at the corner of Spain, and this is what the guys are going to have to be thinking of. It's not only the competitors out there, but the other hazards on the ocean.
You mentioning the weather reminds me, this time 4 years ago, we could barely see the boats from anything but the helicopter shots when they were right above them because of the rain and the mist. It was pretty gruesome out there, but splendid, fabulous weather. The French Coast Guard just at the top of the picture earlier on, but we're back on board PRB, who've had a long-standing relationship with this race. It's their 5th boat that they've sponsored in the Vendée, and this one is being skippered by a legend of the race, Vincent Riou. He's one of the names that these people have come to see, and they've come in their hundreds of thousands and started to arrive when it was still very dark in the early hours of this morning to get a good spot on the dockside. And obviously most of the boats are now out of sight of the beaches. There'll be small specks on the horizon, and the crowds are watching this on the big screen. Jeremy Bayou and Maître Coq making good progress in his 3rd Vendée Globe.
Yeah, and he'll be wanting to prove himself now, having not finished either of his previous 2 editions. He's got a boat that he knows can perform. He's retrofitted the foils. He should be in a good place. He's just got it's about bringing it all together.
And sort of 2nd or 3rd place there with the blue and orange sail, the back with Jean-Pierre Dick aboard. It's his 4th Vendée Globe, another huge name that the French crowds have come to see. Originally a veterinary surgeon, but that's all behind him now as he attempts to beat his 4th place finish in the last race.
Yeah, known for doing so well with double-handed races, he's yet to deliver single-handed there, but he's kept his relationship with the animals with Verbac. They've been a long-standing sponsor, and Saint-Michel have come on board with them for this edition of the race.
What makes him unique? Because he's, you know, a master of double-handed sailing, but you can't really say that he's not exactly a master of single-handed solo sailing, given this is his 4th Vendée Globe. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah, I mean, he's really technical, and he really does have attention to detail. I think that's, you know, the veterinary science probably coming out in him. But it's just been really unfortunate. He was on for a podium finish, and then it's all about these factors that are beyond your control. So he lost his keel, had to nurse his boat to the finish line, and finished 4th. So to finish 4th without your keel was still impressive. It was just that was his podium opportunity. So he knows he can do it, and he's out to do it properly this time.
The sleek black Hugo Boss boat of British sailor Alex Thompson, making his way away from Les Sables d'Olonne. So they'll be looking at cutting down the winning time of 78 days that was made by Francois Gabard, the youngest winner of the race in 2012-2013.
Yeah, and that was on Massif, which is actually now racing as
Put me on the spot there.
I know. I thought you were going to help me out then as well.
But Vincent Rioux, who we're looking at, will be using his immense experience to make sure that he's as close to the foilers as possible, that he can give them as much a run for their money as possible. And now as the boats head further and further out to sea, the spectator fleet begins to thin.
Now the skippers are relaxed. Now they're happy, and now they're like, oh, okay, now we can get on with it.
Dick and Tanguy de la Motte sailing side by side there. And it's interesting, the different funding methods for these different teams. There are straightforward business sponsorship deals. There is crowdfunding for some of them. Some of them are charities almost, raising money for charity and gaining support that way. So the aims and motives and dreams of these skippers as different and various as the skippers themselves, their boats and their personalities. Now we do have a bit of internet here, so if you want to tweet at @dcafari any questions, we'll do our best to pick them up and give you an answer.
And I'm going to make sure I tell you, Massif, the previous winner that got 78 days, is actually SMA with Paul Maillat. I always get SMA and Safran confused, and that's really bad, because Safran is a new boat with foils, with our emotional Morgan the Gravier on, and SMA has the previous edition's winner with Paul Maillat on. He recovered from injury on a transatlantic to come back with his own personal rehabilitation and the boat fixing to be ready for this Vendée Globe.
And of all the races within the race, there's an interesting one also amongst the 4 oldest competitors in the race. We've got 66-year-old Rich Wilson of the United States, Nandor Farr of Hungary, who's 63 years old. This guy, no way back, Peter Hirema of the Netherlands, who's 65. Slightly depressing name for your boat. Enda O'Keenan of Ireland, we don't know where he's gone. He was going the wrong way when we last saw him.
He did go back. Peter said no way back, and Enda's gone back.
Enda's 61 years old. So 4 of the oldest competitors ever taking part, all of them with their own reason for doing this. Rich Wilson wants to spread the words of sailing and how good it is and how healthy it is to the kids of the world, and he'll be answering questions that come in on social media from children all around the US and China and every corner of the world. But he's also hoping to encourage more American sailors to take part in the Vendée Globe as we watch Jeremy Bayou make progress with Metrocom. Why do you think we haven't seen many Americans taking part? And I think Rich is the fourth only since 1989.
Well, and I know there's other Americans that are desperate to do it. Ryan Braymere is working on the Safran project, has worked on many of the boats in this race and has desires to do it and hasn't managed to get a program together, and he'd like to be another American skipper in this race in the future. And I think it's just spreading that word of the passion of what this race is about to America. It's very easy in France. Everyone knows what the Vendée Globe is in France. We're slowly getting it out to the other nations. And closer to the action is easier, and of course America's the other side, and we don't sail near America very often, so it's a slow process. And I think by having Rich in the race and getting the media inspired by this passionate one man, one boat, one planet to circumnavigate, there's got to be a good thing, so hopefully it will help.
Thomas Rouillon on his first Vendée Globe race on Le Souffle du Nord, le projet Imagine, which is a charity bringing together hundreds of supporters for the Imagine charity.
Seb Joss there just showing just how much protection is there in his cockpit. He was working in the cockpit, looking out through the window without even having to go outside and be exposed to the cold air.
Now, safety is very important. You're talking about protection. They have to undergo all sorts of tests and training, don't they?
They do, and one of the tests you have to do with a new boat is to actually invert it upside down. So you pull it over with a crane without a mast in, and then you have to be able to right your boat by just swinging your keel to prove that it can come back upright again. So that's kind of the extreme test to prove, and then you have to test at a 90-degree angle to check that your boat's okay. And that's where Fabrice Amadeo had a problem, because he did that with his boat and his mast broke. So just recently he had to get a new mast together on this boat, on New Rest Mammoth. So they had a big project.
How much trust can they have in the new mast?
Well, I guess in a way they're like, well, at least it's new, so I know it's okay. Whereas they thought they could trust the old one, and it unknowingly had an issue and it broke. So I think you have to put it to one side that it's untested and just go, well, at least they can't have anything wrong with it. You have to just be positive.
Frenchman Quito de Pabin in the middle of the picture with the blue and white sails. Part of their training also involves survival techniques, which they learn in swimming pools and get water thrown at them, and they get pushed underwater and so on, and I'm sure you've done it.
Yeah, several times. You have to...
Is it as unpleasant as it sounds?
No, it's good, because you use all your gear, so you use your survival suit.
You say that about everything. You're so relaxed about everything. Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's because I really like it. But you have to show that you can deploy your life raft from inside your boat within 15 seconds. As one of the safety tests, you have also a life raft on deck exposed so that it's good to go. You have to practice getting in life rafts. You have to practice in your survival suit and your life jacket. And you test all these so that it's up to date, and you're not going to freak out if it does happen, because you know what you're doing.
And obviously always hoping you're never going to need the technique. So that's your safety training. What else can you talk us through that picture? What can we see there?
Well, if you see just behind Thomas, there is a sail, a massive, great big sail on the back of his boat. And because he's got one on deck, bag. Yeah, one on deck tied to the back, and one in the cockpit there tied to the back. And the conditions they're going to go into now is this very pleasant 10 to 15 knots of wind. It's soon going to become 20 to 25, and then they're going to see acceleration tomorrow morning. They're on this broad reach. So you put your stack at the back aft windward quarter to help with the trim of your boat. So his shore crew have moved that for him, so that it's one job less for him to do.
And it's a useful little seat as well.
Makes it a very comfortable seat, yes. And as it gets wet, it gets heavier to move, so you need to know it's right.
Louis Burton on Bureau Valet. Also on the left of the screen, the big yellow boat.
You see Thomas there, just how exposed he is. His cover, his protection there doesn't go all the way back like Seb was sat, all
So
protected.
this is the choice of the skipper, because I noticed when I looked at the Hugo Boss boat, I mean, it is completely different from any of the others.
Yeah, and some people like to have a bit more exposure so they can feel the wind and kind of feel what's going on. Some people like the protection because the wind and the water is cold. It's really cold in the south, and these foiling boats are really wet as well. And if you are protected, you're warm and dry for longer, you can concentrate and perform better. So it is a bit of a balance. And we've seen over the years the protection actually increase so that the sailors can proactively sail their boat better rather than sit down below and hope the autopilot does a good job. So I think it's a change of ethos, and you know, we've got the structure on there to allow that to happen.
One of the early stars of the Vendée Globe was Ellen MacArthur, and I suppose what a lot of people remember about her and the videos that she was sending back was the tears and the dramas on board. Have things changed in the 16 years since she did the race technically that have helped the sailors?
I mean, things have changed and things have developed, and things are always trying to help, but we're always trying to push as well. So where the things that were difficult for her may have changed, there's other things that are difficult now. So by pushing technology and pushing the envelope all the time so you're on the edge, there's always going to be something that you could actually basically sit down and cry about that is just going to be beyond you. And what was refreshing with Ellen is she wasn't afraid to show just how hard it was and show how frustrated and emotionally you get into this and you give your everything, and if something happens, it does affect you. And I think, the guys just don't want to show that side, and I think Ellen just laid it out there and let us know what was involved. And it does, and management of your emotional well-being, your psychological state is just as important now as your physical state, and a lot of people spend a lot of time preparing for that with psychologists and training and coaches to make sure that they maybe don't have that emotional roller coaster so that they can channel their energies in one way all the time.
Have you done any of that sort of training?
It's one big step I made from sailing the wrong way around the world to then sailing the Vendée Globe. I went from an adventure to actually a race, and I needed to not have that energy used by the emotional roller coaster that I had on the wrong way around. So I did underestimate the value of it massively, and it helped me a lot. I know that I can probably go around the world and I won't cry about anything because I can manage myself so much better now. I get frustrated and you get annoyed.
Yes, but us TV people don't want you to do that.
I know you want that emotion. I know you love that, don't you? But it's, you've got other things to worry about. You need to put your energies elsewhere on a boat.
Now, we haven't got any women in this race. It's been a while since it was female-free. Why do you think that is?
Well, it's really sad, and actually I've done a couple of interviews with Sam Davis this week while we've been here on that exact subject.
Who competed with you in 2008.
And was back here in 2012 as well. Both of us were on the recent edition of the Volvo Ocean Race with Team SCA. And by the time you finish that race, and then this race comes in, you don't really have the time to get the budget together and a project together to enter the Vendée Globe. So for us, it was a case of timing, and there was probably a couple of others on the boat that would have been affected by that. And then I think there's a gap of women with the experience to step up. So Anna Corbea, that did the Barcelona World Race with me, was very keen. Isabel Josh, who had a fantastic transatlantic race to start with, and then had to divert for problems with her boat. I think they're both people that wanted to step up but couldn't find the budgets in time. And this year there's been 5 girls in the Solitaire de Figaro, so I think you can see a growth in women offshore sailing. And so I think maybe by the next edition they will have had time, and women's sport is growing, so maybe the budgets will be there for women to compete, and I think we'll see them back in this race, probably 2 or 3 girls.
And the new handicap rules for the Volvo Ocean Race, and then we will get back to talking about the race we're watching, but the new handicap rules that will promote women sailors should be a great help.
Well, it definitely incentivizes teams to choose mixed, which I think gives girls the experience, because to jump on a boat and sail solo around the world, having never been in the Southern Ocean before, is a massive undertaking. And if you can go down there in a team environment where you've got people to support you, get that experience, you can come back into this Vendée Globe much stronger and perform confidently. And I think Justine Metro, who did the Volvo Ocean Race with us, is now a Figaro sailor, and I think she's one to watch stepping up to this. With the experience she's gained in the miles offshore, you know, she could be a face that will deliver, as we've seen before.
We're watching probably the best tunes of the new boats. The boat of Amel Leclerc, Banque Populaire, going for his third attempt at the Vendée Globe, 2 second places in his earlier attempts. Surely this time he'll be thinking he can do it. They call him the Jackal because he grinds down his opponents, just follows them and wears them out, and then takes that victory. Will he be able to do that in this 8th edition of the Vendée Globe, I wonder?
Well, if we think back to 2012, where it was basically a match race around the world with him and Francois Gabard, I can understand why he can grind his opponents down, because there was just no letting up. On board here, there with Roman Atanasio, Sam Davis's partner, who we were just talking about, fulfilling a dream for him to sail around the world. But Armel is definitely the race favourite. It's the one people have got their money on. We'll just see if the foiling technology lasts and he can deliver. But at the moment, it's all about PRB and Vincent Roux leading this fleet out of the Bay of Biscay.
Good number of French boats at the front of the fleet, which will please the home fans. And there in front of them is the vastness of the Atlantic Ocean. 3 months at sea, 78 days for the fastest boats, maybe less. And anything up to, what, 120 days for the boats at the back of the fleet?
Yeah,
that is a very long time to live in your own company.
It's going to be a big delta change there. You can see Edmond de Rothschild there, one of the foiling boats, Seb Joss, new boat, is easily going past PRB there. I know our camera angle doesn't help that, but it's just a sign of when the wind changes a little, the acceleration the foiling boats can have. And you can see with the movement of the spectator boats that it's quite churned up. There is a bit of swell running out there. And soon we'll be running out of spectator boats, and the boats can just get on with sailing without having an audience.
Morgan Legravier on board Safran 2, 29 years old. So much pressure on him with the French media comparing him to the last edition's winner, Francois Gabard. We saw that pressure come out in a flood of emotion in the docking out ceremony earlier this morning. But now he's looking like he's doing his job. He must be calm.
Yeah, I think he's realised that he can't keep quiet. He's waving now. He's got his boat sailing.
Is he telling the chopper to move away?
I'll take that as a polite wave. Edmond de Rothschild clearly establishing himself in front of Sadebo. He went to windward of the boat and then he's come down in front of him just to make sure he knows he's in front and leaving him behind. PRB choosing to sail a slightly higher angle, and that's all going to be angle chosen just down to the design of the boat. So the foilers will want a certain angle to make their foils work. The other boats are going to go for a certain angle to optimize their boat speed with their routing software that they've picked for their start of this race.
And each one of these skippers has different ways of entertaining themselves and keeping themselves sort of focused and relaxed when they're out at sea.
Yeah, I mean, many of them will have iPods and music playing. A very eclectic mix of music we all seem to carry, because I think it's only fair given all the different conditions that we're in and different moods we may be in. Some people will have, I know Ender's got a lot of movies.
Well, I think that's James Bond arriving.
With them. There's SMA, the former Massif, winner of the last edition of the race with Fourmeyet.
Now, 5 of these sailors are competing for the 4th time. We've talked about them, but what makes them come back over and over again, other than a touch of insanity?
It is a draw of the Vendée Globe. It is so special that even when you're here and people ask you, you'll be like, oh yeah, no, I'd love to be back. And it's, you know, that emotion of that departure day, the fact that everybody knows what you're doing, the simplicity of the story, you know, you, nature, a boat, conquering the world. The fact that, you know, people are pushing technologies and some people are having an adventure, and there's all these races within one big race. And your chance to just go and, you know, understand yourself better. You kind of know where you are in the scheme of things when you spend 3 months alone.
Seb Joss on board his Edmund de Rothschild boat. One of the fastest foilers in testing, that was. And this, one of the charity boats out there, collecting money for a very worthy charity, Initiative Kurt. And that's skippered by Tanguy de la Motte.
I spent a lot of time this last week just asking people who know, you know, who their money's on. Who do you think their money's on? And I have to say that Edmund de Rothschild with Seb Joss was on the list for Sam Davies. So
Making
Michelle
the most of
Vervac,
the conditions.
waving to their supporters. All Jean-Pierre Diggs fans there.
So what
waving
are
at
your
him.
predictions for the race? Who do you see coming out on top? And in this, we obviously have to sort of take out the huge element of the unknown and breakages and so on.
Yeah, I mean, foiling boats, it's Banque Populaire with Armel. And I have to, you know, as a British commentator for the one British skipper, I've got to put Alex in there. And then non-foiling boats, it's PRB and Yen Elias on Keganay. They're my top picks. But Sam's right.
You've changed your tune a little bit, because last time when we spoke about a fortnight ago, you had your doubts about how much time Alex Thompson had had on his boat.
Well, I still am not 100% convinced, but the French are so fearful of the fact that they don't know anything about Hugo Boss that you start to believe it. When you're here for a week and you've been listening to it, you're like, yeah, and actually it's good, and like, why not? And he was in a really good place. But I have to admit that he hasn't done the miles he wants to have done to be 100% confident. So that's why I was like, my caveat is it's going to be something beyond his control that's going to be a showstopper. But you know, for all the supporters and for the fact that the British are following this race, it's for Alex, so let's hope he stays in there. But you can't write Seb Joss off. He's, you know, he's really experienced. He's had, you know, great team working with Edmund de Rothschild to set this up. They've got some great technology, some real secret squirrel stuff going on. They've had a whole load of designers specialising on stuff, so you know, he's got the means.
And of the different sections of the race and the route, which are the ones that you think will make a difference to the outcome? Where do you think the differences will grow between the boats?
So I think that this initial bit is the baptism of fire, going into the Portuguese coast there. That jibing is quite technical. It's going to be quite windy at Finisterre, and that will kind of cause some issues for some. Then they're going to have, you know, a pretty nice Atlantic, and then it's the Southern Ocean where the test is, that war of attrition, that constant pounding and pressure. And then if they make that, the South Atlantic going north is hard again, because it's upwind. You're fighting your way, trying to line yourself up for the doldrums, and then it's about hanging on for the finish line. But we've seen so many times that those final few miles, we've seen dismastings, we've seen keels dropped. Everything can still happen. So it really is one of those races where it's not over till you cross the finish line.
And is that where the fatigue on the boats and materials kicks in?
It can be. I mean, generally no boat will have sailed 25,000 miles before it does the race. So you kind of do as much testing as you can, but it's in small sections where you can work on it in between. and you can see the fatigue over time, but you're never going to test it all the way. So, you know, the foilers have done a transatlantic, but they haven't gone further without then being able to be looked at and looked after. So it's just whether you've got something that has the resilience to last for the duration.
And in that cycle of your 24-hour cycle when you're a skipper on board, how does that, what's it built around? So on, you know, in everyday life, you work, you've got a watch, and you work around your working hours and your family life and meal times. But I guess meal times go out of the window. Your sunset and sunrise is different. So how is your 24-hour built?
So it's really interesting that you don't actually have a 9 till 5 anymore. This is now delivered by your weather downloads, and they remain the same in UT time, but they don't necessarily match your sunrise and sunset anymore as you travel around the world. So your meal times get a bit, you're not sure whether you should be eating your porridge or your dinner. So you kind of need to set the routine that suits you, and your sleep then is dependent on the weather that you're in. So if conditions are good and continuity's there, then you can sleep. If you've got a sail change or a weather system coming, then you're not going to get the sleep. If you're close to shore or shipping lanes, you're not going to sleep. But if you're in open ocean, there's your chance to sleep. And you just have to try and maximize that as much as you can. And it's balancing, and most people cat nap, and long sleeps are probably an hour to an hour and a half before they then wake up and check everything again. So you're trying to average between 4 to 6 hours in a 24-hour period, but it's in lots of little sections. So you don't have a daytime and a nighttime anymore. This is now a 24-hour cycle.
And I think based on those experiences, sort of sleep psychologists are now actually advocating that as a good way of living your life, if you possibly can, with sort of small cat naps here and there. And apparently there are chief execs with napping armchairs in their offices these days, where they can go and grab 15-20 minutes.
Well, having been through it now, you can understand that that would work, because sometimes, you know, a decision's really hard to make. You're looking at the weather, you're not really seeing it clearly, and then you have something to eat, you go and have a sleep, 20 minutes later, and you make the decision straight away. So you can understand how that can affect things. Obviously, it's a bit different in day-to-day life, because people still have a nighttime and a daytime, and so that's quite hard to do. And people think, God, how do you do that? Just only sleep for 20 minutes? Or how do you only have that much sleep? But I likened it to having a new baby. So I sleep on a boat listening to the sounds of the boat, and if the sound changes, you wake up very quickly, because it's your life that's in your hands. And I said, and when you become a new parent, you sleep, but suddenly you can hear your baby snuffling in another room. Yet before, you probably slept soundly all through the night, and it's because you're responsible for another life, you suddenly react, and you deal in cat naps because you can only sleep when the child's asleep, and you wake up for feeds. And I said, and you've managed that fine. And they were like, oh yeah, you're right. And it's, you know, the boat becomes your baby, and you listen to the sounds it makes, and if it makes a strange sound, then straight away you're up ready to deal with it. And that's something that Morgan Legravier is going to have to work out now with his emotional state departing. He's got to manage himself. He was crying
like a baby.
Yeah, but his baby now is his boat, and he's got a brand new boat with a foiling design. The guys have had, you know, time to immaculately prepare it for him, and I think that was his realization of, well, now it's up to me, maybe, when he left. But he's, you know, he's been under great guidance from Roland Jourdain, a previous skipper of this race, and his team. So they know what the boat was going to go and do. They maybe just forgot to tell Morgan what it was going to do, what he was going to do. SMA supporters heading in, having chased their man off and sent him on a good farewell.
Yeah, Paul Mayat, the 34-year-old Frenchman, supported by all the fans on that boat, and his rookie race, his first in the Vendée Globe. Came through the ranks of the Laser and the 49er, and is now off on his first Vendée adventure. And they'll face all sorts of emotions over the coming 3 months: frustration, elation, hunger, exhaustion, but also, as you've said, Dee, the joy of the open seas and the nature that they'll see. They're all about to write the latest chapter of this legendary Vendée Globe race. So to all our 29 sailors, it's time to say fair winds and wish them good luck. And you can follow all the drama online at VendéeGlobe.com. That's VENDEE Globe.com. And if you're in Paris, go via Race HQ. It's near the Eiffel Tower. Hope you've enjoyed our live coverage. From me, Alec Wilkinson, and from Dee Kafari, who's still feeling rather jealous that she's not out on one of these boats. Thank you for listening, and it's au revoir from the Vendée.
The final shots from the cameras as these boats head out, you can see the spectator fleet have really thinned out. They've all wished their sailors well and are heading back in. And this is the bit that the sailors enjoy then, when it's just them and the ocean. And all the stress and the pressure's gone. All the spectators have sent their wishes, and now the sailors can get on with it. Actually, the sea calms down a little bit because there's so many spectators around you. All their wash creates a lot more waves than there need to be. And from over 100 boats on the water, we're now seeing shots that are much quieter.
Which tells you just how far they've gone already in such short a time. 40,000 kilometres they've got to cover.
And just remember now, as you're heading into winter and you're thinking about your Christmas shopping, these guys will be at sea for Christmas, they'll be at sea for New Year. Some of them will even be at sea for their birthdays.
And you have quite an amusing story about a visit to a news channel recently where somebody came up and said they just wanted to see if you were real.
That's right. I have a reputation at Sky News, it seems, where they phone on Christmas Day because they always know I'll be in the middle of an ocean somewhere. And he suspected that I wasn't actually a real person, but he couldn't believe that at the end of this phone somebody in the middle of an ocean would answer. And that's what these guys do. They can link up live on satellite communications, do live conferencing, live calls, and it doesn't matter if it's Christmas Day or any day. Didac Costa's furling away his sail, it looks like there. He's changing to another sail. So the wind's starting to increase, which means that our foilers will probably be accelerating. So he started there with a Jenica. You can see that fixed to the end of his bowsprit. This is the old Kingfisher that went round with Ellen MacArthur. So a legendary boat. It's a long old furl. You've got a bit more to go, Didac. Keep going. And then he's going to unfurl one of the other sails.
And we joke, but what exactly does it involve when you're solo on one of these boats to do something as, well, what should be as straightforward as that?
It's a long old grind. It's longer than you think it's going to be always. And you can see some of them like had the sail up, but they didn't go with it. So they made that decision to be slightly slower at the beginning to save themselves a sail change. And actually anything that uses your energy is just zapping the whole time. So if you can save any energy by being clever, that's definitely the way to go.
The Edmund de Rothschild boat of Seb Joss, a man of infinite experience in round-the-world sailing. He's managed 5th. That's his best position in the Vendée Globe so far. He's attempting it for the 3rd time. And in the sunshine, Roman Atanasio of Famille Mary.
Yeah, he's on one of the older boats in the fleet, and to the bottom of the screen is Rich Wilson on Great American 4 with the former Temenos, so a boat from 2006. Eric Bellion waving goodbye, delighted to be on this challenge. Comme el seul homme. The last little wave to people, he knows now it's just him and the boat. The former DCNS raced in 2008 and then was used for a film, Turning Tide. about a Vendée skipper with a stowaway. So I hope he's checked his boat that he hasn't got anyone stowed away down below.
And it's another charity project. His 14 sponsors have committed to projects promoting diversity in the workplace and in society.
The middle boat there in shot is not racing in the Vendée Globe. That's a spectator out enjoying the conditions.
He can try if he wants.
With Roman Atanasio to one side of him and Rich Wilson on the other side of him.
And for them, what a fantastic day out on the water to get so close to these boats and see them in action.
Definitely, and it's part of history. You know, the Vendée Globe is infamous, and to be on the water at the same time as these boats is quite special, especially to see them all sail past. I would imagine Roman's got a big smile on his face. He's done about 10 Figaro races. He's been sailing for a good long time. And Didak's still furling his sail. Oh, he's gone. He's having a rest. I hope he hasn't got a problem.
The first boat to leave the dock, Didac Costa, Spanish sailor, attempting his first Vendée Globe race.
He
And
is
at the
not
moment,
looking too good. So he's eased his main sheet so the boat's not moving, and he had his head down.
so with Roman Tanessa, oh, here he is.
Yeah, no,
He's
that
looking
is not a
distraught, isn't
happy Didac Costa. So I would, with his mainsail eased like that and the fact that he hasn't fully furled his head sail, maybe he has pilot issues. And without an autopilot, you really can't sail around the world on your own.
So just explain how you've come to that conclusion.
So I thought he was just going to do a sail change,
Yep.
and the fact that he's got his main sheet eased, so the main's not really driving the boat. He's kind of not going anywhere. He's going down below quite a lot. There's clearly a problem, so you're trying to speculate what the problem is. If it was something he thought he could fix, he'd still be sailing. You know, he'd have the main sheeted on, he'd have another sail
at least be
out.
trying to fix it.
Yeah, and I think he's hoping that his shore team are still afloat and notice he's stopped.
And if they are, they still can't help out. They're not even allowed to give him advice, are they?
No, they could say something. They can, and he just has to action it. They're not allowed on the boat unless he then returns. This start line stays open for 10 days now, so he can return to the dock, they can fix the problem, and he can restart. A little light ender we've seen has gone in, but we don't know what for. So there's every chance that he might be sorting something out and then restarting.
So where does the unaided, what are the boundaries of that? So if he says this is the problem and he's got a technician on board, not on board, on the rib, who shouts, well, fix it like this.
It's the same as sending an email, so that's okay.
That's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, you're a jack of all trades. You don't necessarily need to be the master.
Well, fingers crossed then for Costa, whose race has lasted less than an hour.
Yeah, I mean, I've got high hopes they're going to fix this, because Kingfisher to date has been around the world several times and has always sailed around the world successfully. So let's not hope that this edition is its first failing.
It is one of the most iconic boats of the Vendée Globe. It's gone around the world 4 times. Never had a problem. So fingers crossed that's the case this time as well. And to see Costa that upset is worrying. He's a fireman. He's always very calm and collected and rational about these things.
And here we've got Jean Le Cam on the former Foncia that was a winner in 2008. Finished there Mervent. And he'll be loving these conditions. Sailing there with the Solent, with the J2 and a full main. So that he made that decision, what we were talking about earlier, he made the decision to sail slower in the lighter stuff, but he has saved himself a sail change. And now he's in slightly stronger conditions. We can see the waves there. The boat's nicely powered up, sailing nicely.
King Jean on his 4th attempt at winning the Vendée Globe. Second place is his best position so far, back in 2004.
So this is the boat in the lead, Seb Joss. Edmund de Rothschild leading the fleet now, overtook PRB, we saw. There's Jan Elias on Kegenay, no foils on his boat.
Aha. Let's see what's going on then with Costa's boat. Did that look like a support rib though?
No, it actually looked like a spectator rib.
boat.
Yeah. Great shot, just showing how great the weather is. With Safran, Edmund de Rothschild leading, and then PRB. Well, from Seb Joss not looking very happy on the dock when he left, I'm sure he's feeling quite content now, being at the front of the fleet.
And we're into the last few seconds of our live coverage. So it's a chance to say thanks very much to Dee Kafari. You can stay in touch with her on Twitter at Dee Kafari. You can follow the Costas Travails and hopefully recovery and return to the race by following the race live online on VendéeGlobe.com. And we say goodbye to the 29 skippers.